Hello, this is Formula One Fans of America, episode 15, I believe, unless I'm wrong, which I sometimes am. Post Abu Dhabi, you know what we were right about? Checo is going to be gone after this season. I had it in the notes, like during practice, I think, and it was just like, there's no way they're going to keep him after this year. Like, he's going to transition to that ambassadorship role. They'll offer it to him. I don't know if he wants to take that or not, but probably not. So it looks like we're going to see his last race this weekend and then watch him retire. Greg was right during Tech Talk. He was talking about Mercedes and how they were dragging the hell out of the plank on Russell's car specifically. Not so much as Lewis's, but they were definitely trying to go as low as they possibly could. And it didn't work out super great for them. They had a decent weekend. I mean, I was impressed with Mercedes' performance the last 2 weeks, but yeah, Greg was right about that. So let's go ahead and get into the FIA and all of the absolute bullshit that is going on with them. There's George Russell making comments about, hey, when major people are leaving this organization and you only have a certain amount of people qualified to do these jobs, we shouldn't be finding it out through the media as, you know, the leader of the drivers' organization. And he's absolutely right. Like, that's insanely unprofessional if you're going to make major personnel changes in the governing body of the sport. You should alert the drivers in the teams and before you alert the media. So it's not a notification from a news article. Like, do better. Like, you have PR teams. Like, this is just bad PR at best, but it's shitty and unprofessional, you know, at the worst. And seems like they're having a lot of struggles currently over there at the FIA. You have the personnel changes, but also inconsistent rulings throughout this weekend, especially. The severity and harshness of the penalties that were being handed out, which just really made no sense. Like, Verstappen's penalty was stupid. I'm glad that he voiced his concern, and, you know, he said it in his native tongue, but he spoke his mind on it and called it for what it was. He also very frustrated with George Russell over there, and calling it, you know, George Russell and his FIA buddies. It's a little reminiscent of a rivalry from the past. It reminds me of Senna and Prost. Like, you know, Prost was buddy with the FIA, and, you know, Senna always got penalized and got shit on by them. I don't think Russell's necessarily buddy with the FIA, but he definitely contributed to Max getting that penalty and frustrated Max, rightfully so. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so I actually have notes, and that's what I'm trying to do here. All right. So first and foremost, George Russell's kind of a bitch. Straight up, both of them were on a slow lap, and George decided to gun it coming around. And it was like, where was Max supposed to go? Like, the FIA or not the FIA, I apologize because there's stewards, FIA, whatever. The stewards literally said Max had nowhere else to go because there was a car directly in front of him. Where was he supposed to go? But we're going to give him a 1 grid penalty spot instead of 2 or 3, whatever it is. I forget what the actual call is for impeding. But yeah, no, it was kind of interesting to hear, like, somebody rail off on another driver. That was kind of showing, and kind of something that we've all seen with George Russell, that he seems kind of sketch to begin with. And for Max to basically just come out and say, yeah, he's great whenever he's in front of a camera, but once you get him off the camera, he's kind of a cunt. You know, it was like, huh, okay. And like, it actually brought up one of the other races, which was where George got impeded or something happened. I can't remember what it was, or he got cut off and he walked over to the driver and just slapped him across the head, like while the driver was still in the car. And it was like, what are you doing, dude? So is there truth to what Max is saying? Possibly. Is George a bitch? Probably, but he's British, so it's kind of expected. As far as the rest,
I'm sure we'll see it come out in Drive to Survive whenever they release that.
Well, that's always good then. I can't wait for that. This season is going to have so much fucking drama on it. It's going to be like a soap opera, and it's going to be glorious. I would say
it's like reality TV shows for chicks, except it's like for me because it's about F1 and I actually care about this stuff.
Right? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, they have the Kardashians, we have F1, so it works out brilliantly.
Yeah, you've got DTS.
Yeah. So, looking at all the penalties that were given across this weekend, I'm not mad about it. And hear me out before your eyebrows raise or anything else. Lando not slowing down during fucking double waved yellow. That is a danger. That is safety. That is something we've always talked about being a big thing. Hamilton's drive-through penalty was for speeding in the pit lanes. Once again, safety. Albon playing bumper cars with Magnussen, 10-second penalty. That's pretty fucking standard across the board. Same with Bottas and not Bottas, Lawson and Stroll got one as well for that. All three of them got 2 penalty points and 10 seconds. I can respect it because it was literally the same across the board. The only one that was not the same, and I will say this now, is George Russell with his safety car thing. Because he was so far back off the safety car, it was ridiculous. Like, they give them like 20 car lengths or something like that. Something stupid. But he was still not within that 20 car length. And I'm like, how do you manage to do that? Or were you trying to be that smart ass that would gun it as soon as it fucking dropped off and try to get ahead of everybody else? And I think that's
move in advance.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to take an advantage underneath safety car.
And I'm not holding anything against them on that one. But here's my biggest thing with all the penalties. They were fucking standard across the board. You got harsh, and that's it. You did not see these little, well, we like this guy more than this guy, so he's going to get a 5-second penalty, and this guy's going to get a 25-second penalty. Like, I'm okay as long as it is across the board and it stays like this. I will be completely happy if it stays like this.
I don't agree with it because, like, you typically don't get a drive-through penalty for speeding, like a 10-second drive-through penalty, which ends up being like a 30, 40-second penalty. It dropped Lando from first to last, or like 15th at the time. So that's why I don't like it. I didn't like, okay, it's just harsh across the board and standard harsh, but like these are different levels of infractions and different levels of safety infractions. One's actually connecting to another car and one was going, slightly fast in the pit lane. It wasn't a danger. It was, still an infraction, but that's why it's overly harsh, because there's inconsistency with the level of the infraction and it shouldn't be the same penalty across the board for that. And if it is going to be that way, or, maybe they had something in their driver's meeting with the FIA ahead of the race, and I'm not privy to that, and they warned them all, like, hey, we're handing out penalties, like, no messing around here. And that could also be kind of retaliation from some of the comments made in the media too, from the drivers about the FIA.
Mm-hmm.
And it could also be a causation of people leaving the FIA and a lack of experience and knowledge. And now there's people who don't really know what they're doing, or there's different people calling the shots now. So none of it's good, in my opinion. Like a standardization of the penalties, okay, fine. But like I said, like the infractions aren't the same. So One is if you're connecting and running a car off the road and, connecting and making contact. That's obviously worse than speeding in the pit lane.
So I would say Hamilton's drive-through penalty, not nearly as bad as it could have been. They could have straight up enforced a stop-go penalty just like they did to Lando with that. A drive-through penalty, while it sucks, it's not a 40-second penalty.
Yeah.
So just looking at severity goes, Lando doing what he did was insanely dangerous. Like, at the end of the day, I get that people are like, oh, it's just, the FIA trying to create the drama for the Constructors' Championship and everything like that, blah, 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 blah.
I didn't see it that way at all. Yeah, for once, I didn't think that was what they were trying to do.
Yeah, my biggest thing is that McLaren literally have been bitching for the past, 4 weeks? Like, the past 4 races, sorry. About, oh, this, that, and the other. You're not punishing properly. Blah, 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 blah. Lando got exactly what McLaren brought on. You want the fucking hammer, you're getting the fucking hammer. And it is that simple. Like, I think we've said this in the past where, perfect example of this, and I know I'll beat a dead fucking horse and I don't care, is Silverstone 21. There is no way in hell what Lewis did was only worth a 10-second penalty. No way in hell. And with as fast as these front cars go, 10 seconds is nothing. Like, abso-fucking-lutely nothing. And drivers have been saying this all along. Like, they're like, well, 5 and 10-second penalties don't really matter unless if it's a safety car, everything's bunched up and you give it right then and everything happens all at once. And like, I can understand where they're coming from on that. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah. It's
at least they called safety cars at the right times, except for
no, they didn't.
Mirror. I was going to say, except for the mirror in the road, which led to an incident, right? I love the quote from Yuki about the beaver. He said, my engineer said it was a beaver. How is there a beaver in the Middle East? Maybe this is global warming. That was one of the funniest parts of the weekend, I think.
Dude, Yuki is a
Yuki
fucking...
Tsunoda he's a champ.
If he ever leaves F1, it's going to be super sad. Like, seriously. That dude has proven over the past 3 seasons he deserves his seat, and it's not just because of Honda money that he's still there.
I would agree with that. He's definitely driven the hell out of that car, and rises up when he can, scores points, whenever he can. So I would like to see him. I doubt he'll take a number 1 driver position at, like one of the top 4 or 5 teams, but I could see him as a number 2 driver for like Mercedes or Ferrari or, No.
If anywhere,
you don't think that he would like. So, like, if Piastri left McLaren, you don't think that they would give him a look, and you don't think he would seriously consider that? Why not?
He would not get a look.
Oh.
Because he wants to challenge. He doesn't want to be just the number 2. He wants to push. He wants to make that number 1 driver look like shit. He wants to actually show, like, I am fully capable of being a number 1 driver, which he absolutely is. And I think that's the part that's pissing me off the most about people screaming, oh, Colapinto or, oh, Lawson for the RBC. Get the fuck out of here. Neither one of them have shown me anywhere near enough to say that they're worthy of that seat. Lawson's
least,
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Pinto, at least it wasn't his fault. So that wasn't
I
his
will
fault
say I agree.
That was Hulkenberg.
But
he let me down
get what
this
I'm
weekend.
saying.
What the hell was that? No, and I absolutely do agree with you. Like, I think that he wants a number 1 driver's position and deserves it. I mean, he sort of has it, except he keeps having to do challenges from whatever young kid's going to come up through the Red Bull rankings.
And like he said, keep throwing them at me and I'll keep destroying them.
Yeah.
Literally, there is no one left in the RB stables except for Hajar that they can bring up and say, let's see what Yuki does against him. Let's see if we can get him in after that. Yeah. Lawson, I'm not impressed with Lawson at all. He's already shown he is not capable of being a team player. He is not capable of not fucking up the other team. Like, I may not like Checo in the slightest, but at the same time, that's the big brother team. Your car is slower, like, by a lot.
We were just talking about Liam Lawson, who cannot keep his mouth under control. He tends to kind of run his mouth, and I think he might have overestimated his position within Formula One a bit. I think you're correct in saying, like, the team is not pleased with him. It could just be growing pains, and we'll watch him shrug these things off. But flipping people off on the track, causing damage or impeding your parent team's drivers. Again, like I say, it's, don't punch the gift horse in the mouth. Like, that's kind of what you're doing. And then flipping them off. It's like, hey, man, don't do any of that. It's stupid and impetuous, and it shows that you don't have the maturity to be here and perform here. Which is crazy because he's had a lot of time to prepare from between F2 and F1, like more than most people do. So it's sort of like, all right, man, you've been knocking on the door, begging it, like begging for the seat, basically, and we have to listen to you talk. He's a pretty decent commentator. I will give him that. I think he's good behind the microphone and in front of a camera. He's very articulate, and he does know his shit when he starts talking about analysis and like the technical aspects of racing. So maybe we'll have a position as a commentator in Formula One if it doesn't work out for him. Completely off topic, and it's not even in our notes. But I don't know if you heard or saw the rumor that Sargent is going to go to IndyCar.
Yes, I thought that was already. I don't even think that's a rumor anymore. I think that's a given.
So I hadn't seen anything official about it. So Lawson is definitely not done himself many favors this season. And again, I hope it's just, youthful exuberance and trying to get settled and just making mistakes as a young, dumb kid. It does kind of lend itself and harken back to things that we've talked about in the past with the youth of the drivers. And this is sort of one of those downsides, right? His brain's not fully developed. He's got a shit ton of pressure on him. Fortunately, he's not on like a crazy expensive team, but some of these teams' budgets are the GDPs of a small country, and having all that weight on your shoulders as a young man is quite a lot. So I'll give him some slack a little bit, but after this,
I'm glad you do.
You need to knock it the fuck off. I don't think Helmut Marko is going to give him any slack. So
no. What I'm saying here
I'm not the one he needs to worry about.
Yeah, I wouldn't give him any slack because you have Ollie Behrman and Kimi Antonelli both coming in and acting like fucking professionals straight from the rip. Like, Behrman literally,
yes,
whenever he was in the Ferrari in his first race, he literally came in, acted like a fucking professional the entire time. Even whenever he went back to school that following Monday or Tuesday. I think he had to go back on Tuesday because of the flight.
Yeah.
But even whenever he went back to his school, he was still like just looking down, like trying not to take the attention, everything like that. Like, yes, as an F1 driver, you need to be used to the attention. But at the end of the day, was he talking shit? No. Was he trying to start fights with, I don't know, the most experienced F1 driver of all time? No.
Yeah.
He literally got in the car, did his fucking job, and went to school. Yeah. Like, Lawson is... I've always had issues with Lawson. And I still... obviously...
I think that's what's playing into your criticism.
No, it's...
You kind of always had an issue with him?
So my issue with him is the fact of how he basically set up the previous, like, granted, Yuri saying that was on him. He should never have said that. And I do not condone it whatsoever. And I'm not taking any responsibility off of him. But the kid got set up. He should have known better, everything like that. The only reason Lawson was even in the reserve spot is because of that incident. And that's it at the end of the day. But
I get it.
Whatever.
I do want to talk about what you're saying with Behrman, and like that should be a concern for him, and because he has sort of set the template to follow for these young drivers. Extremely professional and humble, like the level of humility. Especially he scored points, in an F1 car, and I think it honestly will still be my favorite moment of the season because it gave me chills, literally, and my hair was standing on end, hearing him call for the gap to Hamilton.
Yep.
And I'm like, here you are, man. In a Ferrari, it's like you're riding with Schumacher and inspired by that. Speaking of Schumacher, I just saw some news about our boy Mick Schumacher leaving Merck. So what went on there? What do you think the issue or what's going on there?
He was never going to get a drive from them. It's that simple.
That's what I felt like.
Toto tried to. Sorry, I actually had that in my notes as well. Toto tried to actually help him out. He really did. Toto pushed more than I think any other team chief would have to or team principal, to try to get him a seat on the grid. And I think because Mick did not come out flying like his name was Michael, everybody was automatically done with him. And it's at the end of the day, do you not remember whenever Michael Schumacher first came onto the grid? I remember watching the replays of those races a few years back. And
Lewis's first year too, a lot of these guys who were amazing drivers, sorry for cutting into you, but a lot of these guys that are amazing drivers did not have the best first two seasons, and they needed a little bit of time to adjust to everything. I think it was more pronounced back then than it is now, because we have these systems in place at all these teams to sort of, the driver academies and bringing guys up and reserve drivers, and you get your testing in a Formula One car. So it's not like your first race is your first time. Sort of how it used to be. So I think it's getting better for these younger guys, but I think I even said it when we were talking about him, that you really only get kind of one shot in Formula One. We'll probably, I can call it now, and I think it's a safe prediction, but we'll never see Logan Sargent back on the grid in Formula One again.
Unless something happens in Indy, if he does well in IndyCar,
he wins Cadillac 3 championships in a row.
I wouldn't even say that. I think if he comes flying out of the gates,
championship.
Yes. I think if he comes flying out of the gates, Cadillac is going to pick him up. I really think so. Because this is one of the.
I say that with an air of doubt, but I hope so. I want nothing but the best for him. I think, and this is the crux of this discussion is he didn't get a good chance. He was in a terrible car on a the worst team, one of the worst teams, and way too young and inexperienced. He needed more time for development, and he just didn't get that time to develop. I think the same is true about Mick. If he goes and he's performing in WEC and in these longer races, he's obviously a good driver, and he's got professional driver capability and the ability to drive in Formula One as well. It's just such a fickle beast, and you sort of only really get one shot.
I don't disagree. And here's my biggest thing is and I know this is unpopular because these teams are, one of them is a historical team. The other one is a new team, but the only American team. And it's Haas and Williams should not be a location for junior drivers. Simple as that. No chance in hell.
Yeah.
Haas does not have the money for a young driver at all. They never probably will because they're not going to get these sponsors. But they are a perfect team for somebody like a Bottas or Ricardo, to show that, like, hey, this is still like what I have, just like they did with Hulkenberg and fucking Magnussen. I will say this now, like, I know K-Mag gets a lot of fucking hate, but a lot of it is so undeserved. Like, yes, he was a fucking wrecking ball for a while, and I get that, but we don't know what the team was saying to him in the fucking shadows. They could have been like, hey, if you want to keep your seat, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
And just like Williams could be a fucking place that drivers who had a shitty drive can go and try to show, like, hey, look, I am doing a lot better.
Yeah. There's no money there, on these teams. They're both very cash-strapped teams. Like, I don't know what Williams has admitted that they didn't even pay drivers in the past.
Yeah.
Like, we had no money to pay our own drivers. Fortunately, they came from families with means, but yeah, otherwise they're not getting paid. And that's hard too if you're a young Formula One driver and you're not, one of the fortunate sons coming from the child of, millionaire, multimillionaire, billionaire parents.
Sort of hate whenever that gets stuck right there.
Sort of goes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like that's got to be a struggle. And you have to think, like, these, it should be mandatory in the budget and the salary cap. And, like, what the fuck is the FIA really doing then, other than handing out bullshit penalties? Why aren't you making sure these drivers are getting fucking paid? And if George Russell is going to bitch about petty things and rules and infractions, why don't you start bitching about making sure your boys are getting paid? There's only fucking 20 of you. And if fucking like 8 of you aren't getting paid, I think I would be standing on my soapbox every goddamn chance I got to say, why are 8 of the top 20 drivers in the world not getting fucking paid hundreds of millions of dollars? I don't get it. And it doesn't have to be hundreds of millions of dollars, but like a minimum fucking salary, like a salary minimum is in every professional sports league in the United States, pretty much. Like, you will get a minimum salary. Like, what the fuck is this? Get off your ass, Russell. Stop fucking crying and stop bitching about penalties and start bitching about getting your drivers paid. Especially since you came from Williams, you spoiled little bitch.
Okay. You're like the 10. I need you to about 7. I like the intensity, but we just got turned down a little bit. Because, I mean, Latte Boy gets what he deserves at the end of the day.
He behaves like a petulant child and a spoiled brat. And so, yeah, I'm a little harsh calling him a spoiled little bitch, but like he does, his actions earn that critique. And I don't believe I'm alone in this criticism. And I don't think I'm unique with saying that. Like, he is doing things in a way that other drivers don't. And especially for somebody who's worked so closely with Lewis Hamilton for so many years, you'd think he'd fucking know better. You'd think he know there's a right way and a wrong way to go about doing this. I know you disagree with me, but he is still one of the most mature drivers. And even through his mistakes, you're still supposed to be learning from that, right? Like, if I am a subordinate to somebody, I learn from their mistakes as well as what they do right. I try to learn from both and not repeat those things.
No, and I get where
he would have learned
that. You think he would have learned to quit hitting people's back tires, but hey. Anyways, moving along. So MBS is just way too worried about getting rid of the people who are investigating his finances. And this is the drama that I was warning you about earlier. So, Did you know that the FIA president is an unpaid position?
No.
I did not know this either. I read this. There is an unpaid position, but they are given an expense allowance of like 1.5 million or something. Like, it's absolutely absurd how low it is for that position, considering the FIA
I was going to say it
governs the entirety of motorsports. But if you look at it, look how Ben carries himself, everything
the
like
worth
that,
of these teams is upwards of how many billions of dollars? Wasn't it like 30 billion or something ridiculous?
No, it's 1 billion to 2 billion on most of these teams.
Oh, okay.
It's
no, I meant the total team. There was like a stat that was posted in our notes, like, or in the group chat that I think Fabian posted, and it was like 30 or 40 billion dollars. I want to say 30, like the worth of all of the teams combined.
Like 30, like 30.1 or something. But yeah, no, I get where you're coming from on that. But you got to remember, each individual motorsport is owned by a certain group. So it's not like the FIA owns these people. They're just the governing body.
No. Yes.
So,
but they should have enough money to make sure that like whoever's in charge is getting paid. And the reason for that, like the reason why I object and balk at that, is because then that dude is susceptible to bribery by billionaires.
So if you look at it,
although he's a billionaire, like NBA, he's a billionaire himself. So like that's not really it. But in the past, other ways, like, so we don't have to necessarily worry about bribery with him. Maybe just political favors is kind of how he trades deals, because money isn't an object. But other officials, like, pay that person more money so that they don't get bribed.
Yeah. So here's where the fun stuff comes in. Of that 1.5 million, it is highly scrutinized, like severely scrutinized. And apparently he was using it to do maintenance on his private jet that he owns, which anyways, I thought it was because he was buying new clothes, but hey, what do I know? So apparently both of the individuals who were reviewing his shit were two of the people that got fired. They were scrutinizing him the most out of all of them. And those are the two that ended up fired. And that is where the big drama is coming on.
Hey, be careful, man.
And I'm just like,
get Jamal Khashoggi out here.
Hey, I'm not the first one to report on this, so I'm good. I'm just repeating what I learned. This is the shit that I'm seeing, and I'm like, bro, what the fuck? You make billions, or you were worth billions, sorry. And yet you're sitting here getting scrutinized by people for spending 1.5 on expenses to fly to all these different countries on your private jet that you provided. You know, like, I understand where he's like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. But if you're going to do this to people you scrutinize, then that is like very much abuse of power. But yeah, apparently both of those guys were on
it calls into question the integrity of the entire organization, right? Like, and that's
have integrity.
I mean, seemingly never. And it's one of our the reasons why we're all vocal critics of the organization itself and the governing body, the inconsistencies, the way that they have manufactured drama, or seemingly have manufactured drama. You know, it's the perception, and it's quite common perception, that they hand out penalties and selectively enforce so that they can manufacture drama and get people watching and talking. Because, like, there's no such thing as bad press, basically, kind of mentality. And it's like, as long as people are talking about it and there's controversy sells. So they kind of contribute to these controversies.
Controversy creates cash, my friend.
And that's what I mean. The value of those teams too, that was like one of those graphics, was every single one of them has gone up significantly in the last year. And that's just due to the popularity of the sport. Like between a 50 and 80% increase in value for some of these lower teams. It was nuts. Like going from 800 million to like 1.4 or 1.6 billion in under a year. So the value of Formula One teams is skyrocketing. And I don't know if that's investment. I mean, one thing Saudis do well is invest money, and they have buckets of it. Ramco being one of the biggest sponsors. We've talked about how Stroll Sr. sold like British motorsports history to the Middle East, which I love because if you follow the history of Britain and the Middle East, it's kind of a fun thing.
It's kind of poetic justice.
Exactly. And I like that, how economically they bought back things and there's no longer the empire of Great Britain.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you fuck on me.
But Saudi Arabia is a country, and I'll probably, like, even if I do this professional, I'll never go there for a race. I don't like that country at all.
Legally allowed?
Very vocal. No, I can go.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't like tattoos there. So if like you were military and you were serving there, you had to cover your tattoos and wear long sleeves. I don't know what your religious beliefs are, but if you're an atheist, that's punishable by death. Also, if you're Jewish, they don't like you either. They're very anti-Semitic in that country. And they don't hide it at all. So depending on your, all of these things contribute to, and the way like women just started driving in the last, 10, 15 years. It's pretty ridiculous. All of it culturally is just not for me. It may work for other people, but I lean more Western in my ideology and don't jive.
Well, apparently Western ideology isn't a thing anymore. So,
well, who knows? Anyways, back on topic. You know what? You know who I was extremely impressed with, and I have said this before, and we'll talk about British media bias. No, not Ocon. This was not his fault. That crash was all Hülkenberg, which sucks because I have a soft spot for Nico Hülkenberg, and he's one of my favorite drivers. 27 is my lucky number, and that's his. So I love when Hulk does well, but he pulled the fucking K-Mag and crashed out on the first lap.
Pierre Gasly. That's who I got a lot of respect for this week.
Well, he did it again. I mean,
he drove the fucking wheels off that car. Not back to back. Vegas, he had problems.
Sorry.
Yeah. He did Brazil and then
Brazil Qatar. Yes. Vegas was a blur for me.
It's fine. We'll allow it.
Yeah. My memory's foggy and hazy about last week. So but 2 out of 3 weeks, he crushed it. Like I've always respected and liked Pierre Gasly. Like I think he's a great driver. He seems to have a lot of passion and dedication to the sport. He's sort of a prototypical Formula 1 driver, and like born and bred for this. But even though he is, I also think he would just be like a nice guy. Like I think I'd be friends with him. Like he would be kind of like a cool guy to hang out with. I'd probably respect France a lot more hanging out with him, and just the way that I am. But Zhou Guanyu. Also, is this me not understanding Mandarin? But they use his first name in the graphic. Driver of the day was Zhou Guanyu.
I didn't see the graphic, so
yeah, they use his first name.
I lost. Not that I lost.
It was just something that came up, and I thought it was funny because it's like everybody else's last name, and then they use his first name, and I'm like, is it because I don't understand Mandarin or they don't understand Mandarin?
Possibly both.
Because I know in some languages you flip names and read right to left. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I don't know anything about Mandarin. I just thought it was funny because I was like, isn't that his first name? Why do they use his first name on the graphic? But driver of the day, first point scored for Sauber, which I thought was awesome. I want to pull up his quote and like what he said and posted on Instagram afterwards, because it was extremely poignant and well put. And I appreciate, like, it's one of the reasons why I like following him, because he will post things like that and make himself, available and slightly vulnerable as well. And so But Bottas' post was, today was frustrating as everything seemed to go against me after a good start. The incident with Liam cost me track positions and gave me some damage to the car. From there, I was on the back foot. Joe was ahead of me, and therefore he had the first pick on strategy. The team pitted me early to learn about the performance of the hard tire for Joe's race, and the timing of the safety car couldn't have been worse. I finished 11th in the end, close to the points, which makes it all the more disappointing. That said, I'm really happy for Joe and the team to at least get some points. It's been a shit year, and his P8 is a well-deserved result for everyone who has worked so hard this season. In any case, one more week to go. I'll give it my all, and I can't wait for what's next. And, like, that's a lesson to all of these drivers about how to communicate your frustrations and how to do it right. You know, he acknowledged things that were beyond his control that contributed to a lack of performance. He talked about his own disappointment and, you know, just the sentimentality of it and why it was so important for him to get into the points as well. And that has to be very, very frustrating for him to be one spot out of the points and to go without, you know, and I hope that next week he can hopefully get into points. But to go a whole season as an F1 driver and not score any points is got to be very debilitating mentally and kind of be a blow to your confidence. But Bottas
Especially
is
whenever you look
no
at him
stranger
3
to the
years
ups
ago.
and downs of this sport. Yeah, he's no stranger to the ups and downs of this sport. I think that's where you see the maturity shining through in his words and in that post. At least that's what I see in it. And I think that, you know, that was the right thing to say and the right way to say it. So shout out to Valtteri Bottas for being a fucking awesome guy, because that really was awesome. It's one of the reasons why I like and support him, and I think so many others do too. It's because he's a very likable guy, and he's a very accessible guy to his fans. And so, you know, I haven't cheered on Sauber all year, but I don't hesitate or shy away from saying nice things about Bottas. He's a good dude. But shout out to fucking Zhou Guanyu, and let's talk about this British media bullshit. How the fuck is he not the highlight? How is he not getting his shine? And how are they not? Man, if this was a British driver for Sauber, they wouldn't have shut the fuck up about it. And that's where, like, my gripe and concerns comes in. Like, they barely even say his name. They called him the Sauber driver. Like, what the fuck is this, man? Like, that's just bullshit bias, and they deserve all the criticism that they get. What was that video where Max responded back to one of the reporters about? He's like, "You've been very critical of the British media bias." And he's like, "And rightfully so."
Yeah, are you going to stop?
Like, and rightfully so. Yeah, no, rightfully so. I'm glad that he calls it out. It bothers me when it's things like this because it does seem to involve nationalism and race.
Yeah.
And
I've been screaming about this for fucking months.
With Yuki. Right.
Yeah,
and
if you look,
but nobody's standing up for Zhou Guanyu because it is maybe a Chinese thing. But you know,
Zhou Guanyu's also
really
not likable though, like the way Yuki is. Yuki is
I don't believe that, man.
Likable.
I don't believe.
Hold on. Let me finish my thought process here. He's not outspoken. Okay. He's not loud. He's not what you expect out of an F1 driver, especially a minority driver, because he is the first Chinese driver. You would expect him to be larger than life, but that is not their culture, obviously. You know, like, he's very quiet, he's reserved, and everything like that. That's why he's not getting the attention like Yuki would, where Yuki's like, fuck it, let's go. You know, like, just, he is very much like Bottas. Both of them are very quiet, reserved, likable to a degree, but they're not like, Bottas has actually worked on it since he has been at Sauber. I will say that. But prior, Bottas was just Hamilton's wingman prior to this, you know, and now you're seeing him come out. Zhou is still young and has not had that experience, that motivation, everything like that. So you're not seeing it the same way. Whereas there are other drivers who are very much a minority in the sport. Because, I mean, if you look at it, Max is Dutch and Belgium. Lando's UK and Belgian. Alexander Albon's Thai and UK, so he's more UK than Thai, so it is what it is. But these drivers who have
Oscar is technically UK
more,
because he's Australian.
We're not talking about prison colonies tonight. Anyways, so what I'm saying here is that, like, for him being the first in the sport, he did not do enough to push it to make himself be seen is the biggest thing. And I think that is why you're not going to see, like, where Ricardo was going out and everybody's like, oh my God, you know, like, at the end of the day, and mind you, I love DR3. Do not get this twisted at all. He is only an 8-race winner. Like, everybody's screaming from the rafters like he was a Kimi Räikkönen or Fernando Alonso or somebody like that who's won a championship, let alone multiple championships. Now, I'm not taking anything away from DR3's likability or anything like that. And I'm not taking away his achievements of winning those 8 races either. I'm just saying, like, everybody's sitting there screaming about that. But Joe Granu being the first Chinese driver and nothing being said is disgusting, but I understand it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, everything you said, I concur with. And even as a huge DR3 fan, it is because of his personal likability and just my desire to want to see him do well because I like him. I really don't like most things about China, but I do like Zhou Guanyu. I think that he is a likable guy when he does have an opportunity to speak and he gets the attention. When they had the Chinese Grand Prix and he had his post-race interview, it was extremely poignant and he was very well poised in front of a camera. He was extremely humble, respectful. It was like a masterclass on how to do a post-race interview. I do agree with you that it is just culturally in his nature to not shout out and raise a fuss and draw attention to himself. And I do think that he also knows how to embrace his role on, let's call it what it is, the worst team in Formula One. It takes a lot of mental fortitude, and this is why I respect him all the more, to know that you're in the worst car and you just cannot compete and still go out there and do and try your best. And to go 22 races to only score points on the 23rd and to still have it at the very end of the season and to have not let it drag you down mentally. And again, to have that kind of mental resilience that you need to do a Formula One season with 24 races across 10 months. He earns all of my respect. And I think he deserves more people's respect, more exposure, and more attention drawn to just how exceptional he is as a person. So
and I don't
that's kind of my point.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with you either. We finally agree on something.
Holy shit, write it down.
Yeah. Zhou Guanyu is a good driver. He needs more attention. British media bias against the Asian drivers needs to end. But fuck it. Like, maybe this is where we succeed, is we will call things honestly and draw attention to what needs to be drawn, the things that need to be attended to. One of those is just how exceptional these guys are. And they're awesome and hilarious personalities.
For 1 second, though, let's talk about somebody who's not an exceptional driver. Checo fucking Perez.
Under the safety car.
Go.
Under the safety car. Off the track. Dude, hang it the fuck up. Like, I know he's not listening to us, but he should have heard my words after Monaco. And he should have fucking hung it up there. Like, nobody, I don't think, would have criticized him for stepping away after that crash and wherein his car came completely apart. And it wasn't actually his fault, partially. there's shared blame in that crash, right? He got pinched between two Haas. He could have taken it could have been avoided by both him and K-Mag, but it didn't. And his car came to pieces. Pardon me.
Yep, you're good.
I think that would have been enough for me to hang it up, and especially after the struggles that he had coming after that. And then I could have seen it, like we all predicted it, like after the Mexican GP, hang it up after your home race. Like nobody's going to criticize you for it. I think he handled it the worst way by belaboring it, dragging it out, and performing terribly. Like this isn't how you want to end your career at the bottom. Halfway through the season, you had placed and podiumed in, several races in the first few weeks and had a strong start to the season. And it looked like it was going to be the Red Bull show for the rest of the year until the upgrades from Ferrari and McLaren started showing through.
You mean the cheating from McLaren?
Flexible wings aren't cheating.
You ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Anyways.
But he definitely handled things the wrong way. And I get that he had the contract for the RB team, but this sucked, man. And it's going to taint his legacy as a driver that he dragged it out and stuck around for far too long and didn't go out when he was ahead. Quit while you're ahead, not while you're behind. And that's what he's going to end up doing now.
So I have 3 sets of notes, mind you. I had my qualification notes, which I actually stopped after the qualification one because I'm like, what in the actual fuck did Jos Verstappen just say? And this is right after Checo went out in qualifying or something. Or no, was it the sprint race? I think it might have been the sprint race. I apologize. And it was, Checo is a flop. Just fucking retire. Give it up. You're done. Now, Jos Verstappen came out and was like, oh, well, if the car was just more balanced between both drivers, I think Checo would return to form. Like, the fuck did you just say? You literally are sitting here bitching about your son's car. Yeah, literally, that's kind of where I'm at with them. Like, are you fucking with me or what?
Is he just trying to provide some balance and contrast to his normal criticisms and critiques? Yeah, I think I'm stepping over you, but I know exactly what you're going to say. It was earlier this year where they were talking about how it was not like they weren't listening to Max's inputs enough. The car was off balance. That's why Max is struggling. And Checo can't drive it either way. So they need to not listen to him, basically.
Yeah. And I get he was the one that pointed out the issue in Spain of last year or wherever the fuck it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But at the end of the day, if you knew the team wasn't going to listen to you, which you knew by the time you signed that fucking 1+1 earlier this year, and you're just so positive that it's the team's fault, not yours, wouldn't you fucking walk away at that point? I'm not signing shit. Simple as that.
I think a reasonable person would. But I don't think he has any other spot in Formula One, right?
At that time, he could have had several spots because it was before he really started slumping and everything like that. That was only 2 races after the fucking Miami GP.
You're right.
So it was okay, cool. Checo might still have it. He's having a downturn a little bit. Granted, we're going to.
I think his best finish since Miami was 6th or 7th. I don't think he's placed higher than that since Miami.
So I got a fun fact for you. What do you think his average qualifying position is in the past 8 races since you like the number 8 with Checo?
I'm guessing 8th.
Oh,
no, because qualifying, no, because he's fucked off in P3 or Q3 a bunch.
Now, mind you, I'm counting the sprints. So there's been 3 sprints and 5
15th.
normal qualifying.
15th?
Close. 14th.
Okay. I was going to say 15th because it would be like the average. Like he's always like the driver to knock somebody down. And like if he gets into Q2, it's barely the last 8 races. And that's why like that was what was in my notes, like verbatim, was Checo's got to go after this year. Like there's no way they can keep him. And I'm counting that as we were right, because right before we started this morning, it's coming out from the team that, and once they're leaking stuff in the media, Marco's talking, Horner's talking, and like the statement from Horner was pretty obvious, is pretty much along like he knows what's in store for him, and he'll have the same offer and opportunity that DR3 had, but elected to not take. And I don't think he'll elect to take it because he's done. Go home, be with your kids, man. Fucking retire already.
How about be with your dad that just literally had a heart attack whenever you fucked it off into the wall in Baku? Like literally the second you hit, he has a heart attack. I think that's your way of being told you're done and it's time to stop.
Again, yeah, like the criticism here comes from just how I feel I would have handled it and wanting to go out on a higher note, and instead of getting, basically told, hey, thanks, but no thanks, from dragging out the rest of the season, I would have retired the Mexican GP in front of my hometown and my home crowd fans. Like, thanked everybody,
Where
been
did
humble.
He
and
in Mexico?
He fucking went out on the second lap, didn't he? He crashed?
No, that was last year, I thought.
I'm pretty sure he placed way down or didn't finish at all.
Hang on, we can look this up.
Yeah.
Because I actually have the points totals up right now. So
we have the beauty of the
Mexico 17th. Yeah, he finished.
I was going to say 17th.
He actually finished.
Yeah.
But
it was at the very bottom. It was embarrassing as shit. And that's why I was like, please tell me that this wasn't what you stuck around for, to go to Mexico and fucking embarrass yourself. Like, especially then, now you have the opportunity to acknowledge that, like, hey, I just don't have it anymore. I still pretty firmly believe that, like, mentally he lost his edge and composure, and from both that crash at Monaco and his dad's heart attack. Like, I think after this, like, his head is just elsewhere, and he's not going to be in racing form capable of producing these results. Which sucks because he's not the worst driver that we've ever seen in F1. He was a
there's always that guy that crashed like 92 times in 36 races or something stupid. I can't remember his name, but that guy was.
But he was for a period of time. He was a Bottas-like number 2 driver, and a good number 2 driver. This season, not so much, and that's apparently all it really takes in Formula One. And again, with that fickle nature of the sport, and we talk about guys just getting one shot. Yeah, you might have one really terrible season, and that could be the end for you. And it kind of looks like it might be for him. So we'll see what this was.
Here's the thing. It's not like it's been just one horrible season. Like last year, he benefited from winning, 2 or 3 races last year? I can't remember how many races they actually raced. And he took second position. That is literally the only reason I think he even got offered the contract. And even then, it was like, that car was a straight fucking monster. Like, no questions asked. That thing was disgusting and wrong. And I loved every second of it, because seeing that type of domination, we will never see it again in our lifetimes. But
yeah, I'm not so sure. We'll see what happens in the future, man. We say that, but I didn't
19 21 race wins out of 22. 21 out of 22 from one team.
Amazing. It is amazing.
That is going to be hard, if not impossible, to top. Now you watch. I say this, and fucking Aston Martin for goddamn Fernando Alonso is going to win every single fucking race.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but also this is what lends to the beauty and unpredictable nature of this. It's actually what makes us fans of it and love it the most. Is that, like, yes, it is very unpredictable. So predictions wise, you guys were mostly good. Mine was not good. I thought Mercedes was going to place much better than they did. I had Russell, then Max, then Hamilton. Max obviously won. So you had Max winning. So you were right. Make had Sainz, then Max, then Oscar. So good predictions from her too. But Greg had Ferrari, McLaren, then Max. So just out of order.
Yeah.
But solid predictions. And I think we did okay. What are your predictions for next week?
Max is hitting another level again. And this kind of scares me.
I'm going with you on this. Like the metal drive here, and like when he's on edge, there's no standing in his way. He is the best driver on the grid today, and he proves it consistently.
Yeah.
I believe Max P1. I'm going to say Leclerc P2 just because I think Ferrari and him. But if I can be wishy-washy on that, it's going to be either him or Sainz P2. And then I'm going Norris P3.
When was the last time you looked at the points totals, by the way?
I want to say yesterday. Why?
There's a fucking 8-point difference between Chucky Boy and Lando. Are you fucking kidding me?
Really? I did not see that.
Fucking points. I'm looking at it right now.
Papaya rules are whoever's in
off
fucking
the
first
table?
and whoever's driving it has favoritism and strategy. And that's the way it should be. That's sort of what Bottas said with Joe was, he was in front of me, so he got strategy. Like he gets to take the strategy. I do the tires to see how we can propel him forward and keep him in the points. And that's the way it should be. So especially with the terrible starts. So here's the bold prediction. Lando qualifies ahead of Oscar. Oscar fucking passes him on the first lap. And then they do papaya rules and Oscar stays in the lead. Oscar takes P3.
Okay. So being that there is only 21 points separating Ferrari and McLaren for the constructors and 8 points for Leclerc. If Max wasn't such an asshole and determined to win, I could see Max letting fucking Leclerc fly right by him. I could really see that. And it would just make me giggle way too much. Regardless though, okay. Max Leclerc. I want somebody random up there. I really do. I'd love to see a Bottas up there. That would just make
Gasly.
Fuck. He's not random anymore, though. He really is not random.
It's still I mean,
it's still new. I know. But
an Alpine on a podium is random. That's not expected from anybody. That's on nobody's bingo card. All right. And especially not for the last race of the season. Maybe now because of the performance of Pierre Gasly. But it would still be a semi-random occurrence if we can agree there.
Yeah, I don't want him up that high. Though.
I like Gasly.
Somebody completely fucking.
It's one of the few French things I like, just like croissants and salmon baguettes. Those things go hard.
Okay,
those are the only French things that I really like. Some of the wine is decent, although it's way fucking overrated and they're way too proud of it. And California has better wine. Suck our dicks. Fucking snobs.
Stop.
all right. I'll stop.
All right. I'm going to go Max, Leclerc, Sainz. That is it.
I like it. I like it too.
Because does
I mean,
that actually give
Sainz
them enough
is
points?
he's so good, man. Carlos Sainz.
I don't think it would still be enough
think
points
gets
to take the constructors. But I would love to
Yeah.
fucking see. I would love to see McLaren lose P1 on fucking constructors.
I mean, the drama is building, so I don't know. Maybe we'll see what the fuckwits over at the FIA have in store for us. If there's going to be any more nonsense. All right. This has been episode 15 of Formula One Fans of America. We will be back next week. Then we're going to take a quick break for the holidays, and I have to move back to Europe. So we're going to take a couple weeks off, and then we'll be back in the new year. But we will definitely be on next week. And thank you for watching.